Can I welcome you all to the Buddhist Society, this very special lunchtime meeting with His Holiness Ringu Tulku. And we're very grateful to you for coming to give us this talk. And the subject of the talk is transforming anger and anxiety in everyday life. It comes from the great Tibetan masterpiece, the Bodhicharyavatara, written by Shantideva, The Way of the Bodhisattva, in the 8th century. And it's a masterpiece, a masterwork that's been studied for generation after generation for the wisdom that it contains. And it's a very, very special piece. And we're so lucky and we're so grateful to you for coming, giving this talk. And I'd like to thank staff of the Buddhist Society, particularly Wangdu Tsering, for having set this up. And also grateful to you two, audience, for coming today. But the way we're going to arrange it is I'm going to ask our resident teacher, our official Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Roy Sutherwood, to make the specific introductions, and he will deal with the questions. Now, I do appreciate that some people are rather shy and probably don't necessarily want to actually ask the questions themselves on camera. So they can type the question in on chat. And I think the way is if they'd like Roy to ask it for them, they can just say, please, Roy, can you ask? If you want to ask the question yourself, then put your name down there and say you have a question, and then it can be open and Roy can manage, can MC it. So I think without more ado and taking up too much time, I'll introduce you to Roy Sutherwood, our teacher. He does classes here all the time, and he does courses online, and it's wonderful to have you, Roy, with us, and thank you so much for making this introduction. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you very much, Desmond, and wonderful to have the opportunity to welcome Rinpoche here. Wonderful to see him. I expect many of you are very familiar with him, but for those of you that may not be, His Excellency is a Tibetan Buddhist Master of the Kagyu Order, although he's been trained in all schools of Tibetan Buddhism and has studied with many great masters, such as His Holiness the 16th, the previous Karmapa, and also His Holiness Dilgo Khentse Rinpoche. And he took his formal education because he's a renowned scholar as well as an unbelievable practitioner, at the Namgyal Institute of Tibetology, Gangtok, and Sampurnananda, Sanskrit University, Varanasi in India, and has served as Professor of Tibetology in Sikkim for 17 years. His doctoral thesis was on the Ecumenical Movement, the Rinpoche movement in Tibet, and since the 1990, he's been traveling and teaching Buddhism and meditation in more than 50 universities, institutes, and Buddhist centres in Europe, USA, Canada, Australia, and Asia. And he also regularly participates in various interfaith dialogues and has authored several really excellent books on Buddhism, as well as some children's books, both in Tibetan and European languages. He's the founder of Bodhicharya. It's an international organization that coordinates the worldwide activities to preserve and transmit Buddhist teachings, and also to promote intercultural dialogues and educational and social projects. He's also founder of the Ringu Trust, which supports all the projects that he has in his birthplace, Ringu in Tibet. And Rinpoche is also the official representative of His Holiness the 17th, the current Karmapa, in Europe, and the founder of the Karmapa Foundation for Europe. Today, his teachings are really based on an 8th century Indian text by Shantideva, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which is very much a series of Shantideva's personal meditations on the Bodhisattva path, and very much relating to and following the sequence of the 6 perfections: generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, wisdom, and concentration. So without any further ado, I'd love to hand over to Rinpoche and listen to his teachings today. Thank you very much, Rinpoche.
It is a great honor that I have this opportunity to meet all of you and to say something on Bodhicharyavatara, especially dealing with anger and fear on the path of a Bodhisattva at this time. As already been said, Bodhicharyavatara, which is translated as ways of a Bodhisattva, or as you know, this text as classics, maybe we can call it, has been one of the most popular classics, most studied text in India also, in Nalanda University and other Buddhist universities at that time. Because this is written or this was recited, as the story goes, in a very poetic but very simple language, very easy to understand and easy to memorize. And it is a kind of, it actually brings together all different teachings of the Buddha on the path of the Bodhisattva. There are many of these kind of things in Buddhism. The Buddha's teachings on, there are lots of sutras, hundreds of sutras, as you know. The Tibetan Kanjur, what we call Kanjur, the Tripitaka itself is about 100 big volumes. And so therefore there are lots and lots of different kind of teachings. But, there are certain, you can call it commentaries, or you can call it treatises that were composed by some great masters at that time in a short way, so that if you study that, if you study those texts in a good way, then you will be able to understand any sutra that you would read that was taught by the Buddha. So therefore these are kind of teachings that would give overall understanding and deep understanding and how to practice and read the teachings of the Buddha. So therefore they used to study those texts more first, and then used to read the direct teachings of the Buddha. So the Bodhicharyavatara became very popular in India. Some people say that there were more than 100 commentaries written by many great Indian masters also. And then when it was translated into Tibetan, it was one of the first Buddhist classics translated into Tibetan language as well. When Shantarakshita came to Tibet, this was one of his first books that was translated. And later on also, when Atish Dipankara did the revival of Buddhism in Tibet, he also recommended Bodhicharyavatara as one of the 6 texts that one should study. So therefore there has been, there is no Buddhist schools or monasteries in Tibet. If anybody would like to study Buddhism, they would study Bodhicharyavatara at least. And so therefore there are hundreds of commentaries on this text, and many great masters have also commented how important this text is in order to understand and practice the Bodhisattva's path, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often teaches this text and also says again and again that if he has an experience of bodhicitta, it's because of this text that he studied with the Kundalama Tenzin Gyatso Rinpoche, and also the great Tibetan Master Patu Rinpoche. He is said to have taught this text all the time. He was not very easy teacher to get teachings from, especially the more kind of Vajrayana and more sacred teachings. But Bodhicharyavatara, he taught all the time, and he used to teach from the beginning, and then every day a little bit, and then come to the end, and next day again he started from the beginning. So one of his main students, Khenpo Kunpal, Khenpo Kunsang Palden, later wrote a commentary on Bodhicharyavatara, which is supposed to be, exactly the way Patu Rinpoche taught. And this is also translated into English, The Nectar of Manjushri's Speech by Padmakara. And there are lots of translations into English also. I think this Bodhicharyavatara it seems to be one of the texts which was one of the first Buddhist texts translated into English as well. And also I was personally very much benefited by this text. I went to a school of Tulkus in Dalhousie in 1962-63, like that, 61-62, like that. And that time, one great Nyingma Khenpo, called Khenpo Tsundu, taught us. Some of our small Tulkus, maybe 5-6 of us were there. We were just around 10, 11 years old, maybe even less. And he gave us that was the first ever any, really true kind of Buddhist text that I properly studied. And of course, that time I didn't understand I didn't know. But later on, when I came back to Sikkim, my parents and my people saw a complete change in my way of being, because before that, I was very angry child, very easily fighting with everybody, and things like that, and actually that's also because of I come from Kham, the eastern Tibet, and the Khampas are supposed to be warriors, and they kind of encourage children, especially boys, to be brave, and then kind of make them actually fight a little bit. So I think I was influenced by that a lot. But when I came back from that school, then they thought that I've completely lost that. They were not very happy actually. They said that he has become like a fresh cow dung. soft and warm. So they didn't like it too much, but I found it very, very useful, because I understood that it was not really, it was not a good thing to be angry and fighting and hold this grudge and look at somebody as your enemy, which also is very much connected with fear. So this is one thing that this text is not just about what you should do and what you should not do. It's a training on how to properly think. How to properly think. Is it useful? Is it good for me? Is it good for others? To be angry, to be to have too much fear and all these kind of negative thoughts and emotions and act with that. Would it be useful? Would it help me? Would it help other people? Would it help now? Would it help in the long run? Or would it be more useful for me and for others and for everything if I was acting and reacting in a different way? So this, this gives a very detailed, and logical way of thinking. How each of these, wrong ways of thinking and reacting and, living, how harmful that is to myself and how harmful that is to everybody else. And it doesn't really serve any purpose for anybody. So when you start to see this and then understand that, yeah, it's true, it's not a good way to live like that, to react like that, to it doesn't serve that much purpose. Then he gives different methods, different way of thinking, way of reacting, different meditations, and different kind of methods on how to work on yourself in that particular situation. So therefore, it's using logic, it's using our kind of intellectual understanding and thinking, and then also our experiential way of reacting, emotional way of reacting, and how to change that, how to transform. So therefore, these teachings, it is of course Buddhist in a way. It's of course Buddhist teachings, but it's not something that is just Buddhist, and you have to believe in Buddha or in Buddhism, or you have to be following that particular religion or or teacher or anything like that. It's just it's a text, it's a study. It's something that we need to reflect on. Very important things to reflect on, and so therefore it's not only necessary. Of course, this text is based on the teachings of the Buddha. It is a way for attaining enlightenment, Buddhahood, and it is very much to do with with the path of a Buddhist path. But if you study it, and I think it can also be applied on any different kind of ways in life. It's not just like you have to be a Buddhist, you have to be a devout, follower of Buddha or Dharma, you can use this in your life, even if you are not Buddhist or you don't want to follow Buddhism or anything like that. There's lots and lots of important teachings that anybody would be benefited. I met sometimes different kind of people, businessmen or those who kind of trained administrators or business people. They would go through these teachings and say that I would like to use this in my profession. And so therefore it is something like that. So first, of course, this text is 10 chapters, and it starts with bodhicitta. Bodhicitta meaning, as you know, I am now talking from the, I don't know, because this is, there are very good things about this Zoom way of communication, because we can communicate, through the barrier of distance and, all kind of things. But one thing, a little bit problem is I cannot see all the faces of you who are here, and so therefore I'm not really sure what kind of people there are. I'm sure there are some who has studied and practiced a lot, and they don't actually need to listen to any of these things. And then there may be some more newcomers also. So I can't say, so I will try to kind of little bit go from the basics, because if somebody doesn't have the basics, then it is more difficult to understand. So generally, according to, there are also slightly different ways of approaching this text, but one of the approaches that the Patrul Rinpoche way of teaching is that it's divided into these 3 sections. The first 3 chapters is how to generate bodhicitta in those who have not generated bodhicitta, and then next 3 is those who have generated bodhicitta, then how not to become less, or to maintain this bodhicitta. And then next 3 means 7, 8, 9 on how to increase the bodhicitta, and then the last one as the dedication. So there's 10 chapters. So therefore it starts with how important it is to generate bodhicitta. And bodhicitta, as you know, is a very, very what can you say, important aspiration, that to try to understand that what is it that I really want, what is it that my actual most important thing for me. I want to be free from pain, suffering, problems, disturbances. I don't want to have any negative things, and I want to be completely happy, well. Everything in me has to be completely well, and that also all the time. And so this is something that actually lots of people don't talk about. I know when I was in kind of school and as a child, lots of great people, lots of high people, lots of the presidents and prime ministers. We used to meet the many ambassadors and diplomats and all kind of people. We used to meet because our teacher, Mrs. Freda Bedi, used to take us to see them. And every time they used to ask me and ask others, ask us, what do you want to become? And this seems to be a question that is always asked. A child, what do you want to become? And the child says, I want to become a doctor, I want to become an engineer, I want to become this, I want to become that. And then they think that that is what solves all the problems. But actually that is not. The real thing is not about becoming this and that. These are just professions. The main thing is that I want to be completely free from suffering, pain, and have complete happiness, joy, whatever gives me the most. That's what I want, and that's what everybody wants. So therefore the bodhicitta is to understand that. Understand that it's not just I want to have this profession or that profession, or I want to have this kind of situation in life or that. No, I want to be totally free from all sufferings, pain and problem, all the causes of problems, difficulties, and I want to have the lasting peace and happiness for myself, and that is what everybody wants. So therefore that's what I want for them also. So if somebody sees this clearly and understands this clearly and really have that motivation to work on, if that becomes my main objective or my main purpose of life, not only this life but lives to come also, then you have bodhicitta, heart of enlightenment. Bodhicitta, of course, is a Sanskrit word. It is translated in many different ways, but bodhi is like enlightenment, and citta means the heart of the enlightenment, and the heart of enlightenment is, from Buddhist point of view, this kind of compassionate way of seeing, and also wisdom, really completely understand how things are. And the wisdom is something very, very important, because this is what the text is also talking about, and this is what when we talk about anger and fear and all negative emotions, the main problem with us is because we don't know what really is useful and good and helpful for me and others, and therefore we immediately get angry. We have lots of fear. We try to fight with somebody. We try to put them down. We try to kill them. We try to make them disappear. Those who we think is the causes of our problems. We can sometimes do that for a while, but once we do that, another problems come up, another people come up. We can never really completely, totally do that, because we cannot control everything. So therefore, if I can look deeply in what these kind of emotions or reactions or way of reacting does to me, like of course anger, I'm sure there are different ways of looking at anger also, of course. Sometimes people think that I see some negative thing happening, some injustices happening, and then I feel very bad about that, and I want to correct that, and I call that anger. Many people especially young people, but old people. I'm very angry because this negative thing is happening. And then sometimes they just go and, go and protest. That's okay, but, then they get even more angry, and then they start using violent ways, and, and then, they get into trouble, and then, then there is a fight, and then you hate more, and then then there is lots of hatred among, and then it doesn't really solve any problem. So therefore, when you look deeply, yes, we need to solve this problem. If there is injustice, yes, that's not good at all, and we have to be able to do something, or at least try to do something to change that situation, but not necessarily with anger, because anger, people say, gives strength. Yes, it gives a little bit strength, because when you're very angry, you become very rash, and you kind of you don't think too much, you just do it, you say things, but most of things that you do in the angry state of mind, that we have to later afterwards regret, because we don't do it with proper understanding, proper thinking, with proper logic. So therefore, this wisdom that yes, I need to change this situation, I need to transform this situation, but just being angry and just hating some people is not going to change. I need to be, much more resilient, much more patient, much more wise, and that's why I need to work on it in a step by step, not hating and getting angry, but with kindness, with compassion, with resilience, with so therefore, but with with certain kind of integrity and with certain kind of courage and things like that. So therefore, fear is another thing like that. You first get very angry, but then you get fear, and then out of fear you attack, and then and you become panicky, and panicky is very, very dangerous, because if you become panicky, you run here, you run there, and then you get an accident. So therefore, these are things that we have to think carefully, understanding. We need one of the main things that all these teachings seem to tell us is that we have, all of us, especially human beings, but all the sentient beings, we have some wisdom within us. We have a capacity to know, capacity to learn, capacity to think properly, and capacity to find a solution. So that wisdom part, we need to develop. We need to develop. The more that wisdom we develop, the more we know how to deal with the situations that's around us, and also that our own state of mind, our own emotions, and our own whether I'm very angry or very sad or very panicky, or all kind of negative or whatever disturbing states of mind, I need to I need to learn that this is something I need to work on. So when that understanding comes, and that little bit clarity comes, then I know what practice is about. I know what is the most important thing that would be really useful for me and for others as well. So when I know that, all these negative emotions that arise in me, whether it's too much anger or hatred or too much like greed or jealousy or too much selfish motives and things like that, then I know that this way of reacting is actually seems like they are my friend, seems like they are good, they mean good to me, but actually they are not really going to help me and help others. So therefore, it's better that I react in a slightly different way. And when I know that, then it's not so difficult, because whether it's anger or any other emotions, every emotion is very, very strong. Emotions are very strong, especially negative emotions are very strong. So when I'm really, in a rage, in anger, deep anger, then, people do anything. People kill people. People, inflict, wounds, and, people do anything. People break things. People sometimes don't mind killing themselves. So, but there is one thing that is, that's not so strong, and that is that it doesn't last, it changes. However strong that emotion is, if you allow it to rest a little bit, to relax a little bit, wait sometimes only few minutes, sometimes overnight, and then it will be not the same. You don't want to do the same thing that you do when you are in the grip of anger or in whatever emotion that is. So therefore, we must take advantage of that by understanding. Say like we have certain anger or fear or any kind of negative and disturbing state of mind, we have to immediately remember that this is something that is coming and going also. It's not lasting for a long time. It's changing. So therefore, there is nobody who cannot, kind of be patient enough to not to react, especially in a bad way, in a way that is harmful to lots of people. So you relax a little bit, and then after you calm down, then you think properly how best to react, and then that anger is changed, because you understand that that's not the good way, that's not the useful way, that's not. So therefore, there is one stanza. I think I should not. I think I've already went 45 minutes, which I was supposed to talk. The one stanza there, which His Holiness Dalai Lama said he was very much helped, and which I felt also I am very much helped, is one stanza which says that you look at anything happening, anything that's there, any problem, any difficulties, any emotions, and see if you can change it or not. If I can change that situation, if I can transform that situation, then there is no need to be angry or upset or devastated by that. I need to start to put together the means, the methods, whatever ways to remedy that, to solve that, to change that, to create the situations for a better situation. So just getting angry and just holding on to that anger and hatred, and that is very harmful to myself, because when I am totally angry and hateful, and then actually I am torturing myself, because when you are in the grip of your anger and hatred, you are suffering a lot. So therefore, we need to do whatever we need to do instead of holding on to that. But if I see that this is something that I cannot do anything about, because this happens and there is nothing, then it's useless to be angry and upset and things like that. I need to use certain other ways to transform my emotions, to let that, to do something that will bring more peace to my mind, more tranquility to my mind, to more, and sometimes that can be done, because if something happens and there is nothing you can do, then of course you feel very sad or very bad or very upset, or so then you learn to work on your mind, to relax your mind, to to bring out your own natural peace and natural joy and natural kindness in yourself. So therefore, when this stanza, if we apply that, I think most of the things, whether it's you get angry, you get upset, you get worried, you get tension, you get fear, whatever, you can use this, and I think this is one of the. But of course, Bodhicharyavatara is a very you can say elaborate text with not very long, but very what can you say, very pithy. So I think I would very much request, I would very much recommend that everybody should try to study this text again and again, which His Holiness the Dalai Lama often recommends also. So therefore, I also try to go through this. I'm not a great teacher or anything like that, but I've taught this many times in different parts of Europe, America, Australia, a little bit everywhere, and I keep on teaching this also now online also, by going through one or two stanzas each week. So if people want to join, you are free and you are most welcome to join also. I think I will stop here by thanking everybody, thanking the Buddhist Society and everybody who is taking care of the Buddhist Society, which is such a important and great institute that was everybody knows. So thank you so much. So now, if anybody wants to ask any questions, you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche. Thank you very much indeed. I have one question to start things off that's come in the chat box from Alexandra Pimenta. And she's saying, I have one question. Why are the negative emotions stronger than the positive ones?
I think that depends on who you are. Most of us are, very much, what we call in Buddhism samsaric. We've been in that exercising or reacting with negative emotions, and all the time, life after life after life, is according to Buddhism. So therefore, it is something that is, that is something that we have most used to. So when we are, always reacting in a certain way, because we didn't train the other way, then that would be very strong. That doesn't mean that's actually the main reason why we need to train, because if we are not trained, then we go the way we are used to. So that's so the negative emotions are the way we are very acquainted with, and therefore that's very strong. So that's why if we train, then there is a possibility that the positive emotions can become stronger also, and then that's what the training is all about.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Terry's asked a very interesting question that I think is a big question for all of us, and that's
Okay.
the emotions are very, very fast. And given the speed of the emotions, how is it possible to begin to let go rather than be emotionally hijacked, as it were, to be taken away by the emotion?
Yeah, that's why we need. That's why we have this, the practice of mindfulness. That we try to a little bit be mindful of what's going on, a little bit be aware what's going on. Of course, thoughts are very, very quick, and this kind of very quick emotion. Of course, this happens, and this is not so. This is not something that we can immediately correct everything. But when we are starting to act in that way, and then we are trying to do something that is inflicting pain and problem on others, and that is not good for us, then the quicker we can be aware of that, and we can be mindful of that, then if our wisdom catches that and say, this is not the way, this should not be the way I should be doing, then I think we have a choice to stop. And of course, maybe it's not possible all the time, but this is what we call training. We catch what's going on, and then we know that this is not the right way, and then we catch it, and then we can somehow we learn to let that pass, and we can think about many reasons why we should not act like that, and then if that happens one time, that will give us certain kind of confidence that yes, this I don't need to be always be slave of my emotions. I can be master of my own thoughts and emotions as well. And when that understanding, or that little bit of experience happens, I think it gives lots of confidence in myself that I'm my own master. I can decide how to act and how to react, and I should act and react in a way that is good for myself and good for everybody else. So I will be a little bit more aware and more mindful. So that's that's the kind of step-by-step training. We talk about Bodhisattva's training as step-by-step and gradual. It's not that one day we understand this and then we become great Bodhisattvas. We have no more negative emotions, anything like that. But little by little, and I think we need to be very patient about this, because it's not easy. We have so much negative emotions and habitual tendencies that it's not going to change soon. So even if we make a little bit progress, or we can make a little bit, a change in this, then I think we need to be happy about that, and we need to be very congratulatory. We need to pat our backs and say, okay, I did this time, that's very good, that's because otherwise you will feel again guilty that again I did this and again I did. I think that's not necessary. It's not good. We have to understand the severity or the depth of our negative habitual tendencies.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I think there's much you said there that in part asks the next question, but it's from Grace, and she was asking, is it better to be trying to deal with a difficult emotion when it appears, because often it's very difficult to be mindful, again, no doubt, because of the power and speed of the emotion, or to wait until it disperses and then start to analyze it?
That depends on where you are. If you can do it that time, if you realize that when you are having that emotion and act or react with that emotion at that moment, if you catch it and you can you become aware and you kind of have the ability or a chance to deal with that, then I think it's very good. But sometimes we react very quickly and we have said something or done something, and and then later on we say, oh no, that was not the right way to do it, or that was not the right way to. Then we can do it later on also. You can't say that it has to be only this way. I think it's the practice is up. Wherever we are. If we can do it that time, that's great. If we cannot do it that time, if you do it later also, that's much better than not doing it.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Peter and Anne were asking, do you have a particular favorite, or in terms of, there are many editions of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life available in translation. Do you have a particular favorite or one that you would recommend?
Well, I think most of the translations I think are very good, very good. I usually use the Padmakara translation because it's very kind of very authentic from the Tibetan, and especially according to the commentary by the Nectar of Manjushri speech of Konzang Palden. So, and that's the text I also received, and so I use that. But there are very many good translations also, and I also saw one very new translation which I don't know if it's already out by one Kebo David Karma Chumpel from Tangu Monastery. He has made a new translation, quite easy to read and very simple way, and it's kind of a little bit rhyming also. I was asked to write something about this. I'm not sure if it is already out. It was, I think, Shambhala which was publishing, and that also I found was very good. But I think some translations are a little bit simpler to read, some a little bit more difficult. This Padmakara translation is very authentic, but some places a little bit difficult if your English is not that great or something like that. So it depends. I think it also depends on people. Some people might find one translation a little bit better than the other, what suits them. So it's difficult to say which is better.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche, and especially for pointing out the new one. I'll keep an eye out for that, but the Padmakara is certainly my favorite.
Yeah, it's very good. Actually, it's very, very good. Yes. And Padmakara translations are very authentic and very, very good translations.
Yeah. There's a question here from Marcello Pitlook, and he's saying that he's not felt fear, not felt afraid for many years, but now he's doing a 1-month retreat. And he recently found a viper, like a snake, in his bed. And he was not afraid when he saw the viper in his bed, but he felt that it was an obstacle to the practice of Buddhism. And he feels fear when he asks himself, what new obstacles will appear? Will they be worse than the viper? So, Rinpoche, could you offer advice on this?
Yes. Sometimes, I think we have to understand this a little bit. When you say, you have to deal with fear, it's not to say that you have to be very kind of, what can you say, rash. You don't have to care for anything, and you just have to, you don't have to feel anything, you just go about and do things. It's not about that. Actually, you have to be more clear. You have to understand the consequences of things and consequences of your actions and situations and things like that. And then, it's important to try to avoid situations which will be danger and create problems and difficulties for you now and in the long run. That a little bit of that, maybe you can call it fear if you like, is, I think, good. That's nothing wrong. Otherwise, you will be there is no no wisdom there. But what we are talking about is that we have too much fear, just like that, like panic kind of thing, so that, I think, we have to, like what might happen, anything can happen, of course, lots of, you can die anytime, a viper can come, or not viper, but, you can get coronavirus, or you can get anything, anytime. So it's important to try to do whatever you can to, to make things better, to make things safer, to make things as much as possible. But then worrying about everything, fearing about everything all the time is not useful, because however much you worry, if things has to happen, it will happen. And there's nobody who can say that this thing didn't happen because I worried enough. So there is to understand that, and then you do everything that's possible to prevent things, negative things happening, and then you just have to face whatever happens, and with certain kind of confidence or fearlessness, or I think that's important. Of course, in the practice of Dharma, the obstacle is not necessarily, sometimes fear can be not an obstacle, but actually it can be also a good thing. Like they said that in the practice of Dharma, challenges are regarded as opportunities. So therefore, if there is no challenges, then if there are no hurdles, then there is nothing you can exercise to overcome that hurdle. So therefore, every hurdle is an opportunity. So that's also something we need to think about.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Glennis has also asked, when you were speaking earlier, you were talking about it really relates to the issue of dissolving anger once it's arisen. And you spoke of it being helpful to contact our kindness at this point, if we can make this connection with our natural kindness. And Glennis is asking, have you any tips or tricks or advice or techniques to help do this? Ways in which we can make that connection with our more natural kind qualities.
I think the main thing is to understand that anger is not good for yourself. It's a kind of suffering. It's kind of a pain for yourself, and the more you hold on to it, the more you suffer from it. And so, therefore, you think that I'm angry at somebody, so that other person should suffer or should have less good things, or But actually, by keeping that anger, I'm the one who actually suffers most and who is harmed most. So when I can really deeply see this, then, if nothing else, just to spite that person, I need to let go of my anger. It's best for me. Because when I get angry, why I get angry? Because, somebody did something that hurt me, or that hurt somebody else, or that's not good for me. I want to get rid of what's not good for me. But, if I hold on to that anger, then I'm myself cultivating what is not good for myself. So this is something I think we need to deeply understand. And when I can understand that, then, even if I cannot be really kind or nice or, others, I can allow my anger to be a little bit dissipated, not hold on too much. And then, think a little bit deeperly, and then you might find that actually the thing that made me angry is also, not really good enough cause that I should keep on this angry all the time. Many times this anger happens because of misunderstandings, because of somebody did something, but that person did it also because of many other causes and conditions, and things like that. So therefore, it's very difficult to find that one person or one somebody is really completely, independently, what can you say, responsible for that. There are lots of circumstances and lots of causes and effects which causes these things. So therefore, when you understand that, then you understand that those people that you were angry at were also, caused or pushed by many different causes and conditions. So they did it a little bit out of control. So, so when you start to see these things, then, your reaction can sometimes change to actually compassion, because, these people did this because they were forced to, or they were, there was no other way that they could do it, or they thought they could not do anything other way. So, this kind of different ways of looking at that.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Charlie is asking, saying that he tends to panic before speaking in public, and this kind of blocks his thinking and stops him offering what he really feels he has to offer to the discussion. Finds this very frustrating and asks, do you have any advice of a way for him to be calm in the moment of beginning to speak?
I think you have to be ready to be a foolish person. I think like this, when I talk to the people, whether it's one person or 10 people or 100 people, I know what I am. I'm not a great speaker. I'm not a, very learned person. I'm just the way I am. So I can't expect me to be very great and very special and very, convincing and very like that, But what I want to say, what I want to share, I can say it as I say it, like if I say it to one person or 10 people or 100 person, the same thing. I think, if people don't like it, that's okay. If people don't listen to me, that's okay. If people, whatever. So I think that attitude is very important. That, I just have to share whatever I want to say. Whether it's, if people like it or don't like it, it's up to them. So therefore, I don't have to be afraid, because when you are afraid or panicky, that means that you want people to be very appreciative of what you are saying, and you wish that people are very, very what can you say? They applaud and they are very impressed. Yeah. But this most likely they are not going to be like that. It's okay, So I think that attitude, is very important.
Thank you, Rinpoche. The next two questions also relate to fear, and they're kind of related as questions. The first from Andy says, should we embrace fear and transform it, or is it better just to let fear dissipate? And the other one echoes a little of what you were saying. In certain contexts, the usefulness of fear, because it's saying that the flight or fight instinct is a product of fear, but can that sometimes be useful, like in situations of danger and so on? So the first was more about should we embrace or wait for it to dissipate? And the other one was looking at the potential utility of fear in a dangerous situation.
Well, if you are in a dangerous situation, panic is very dangerous. Panic is very dangerous because you can see chicken on the street. You drive a car and then the chicken are on this, and they go a little bit here, they run here and there, and then they panic and then they run over. So if you can steady your mind and say like, this is the danger is coming now, I have to be more clear, more calm, and then you see what is the best way to do. Maybe you just stop moving. Like, I used to say this because I had this experience. When we were in Delhi first time, we were taught how to cross the highway, and we never knew how to cross highway, because in India there is no zebra ways, no red lights and things like that. So then there are so many cars and trucks and all kind of donkeys and lorries and elephants and so we were told that you just look up, you just look down, and then walk very slowly. And then if two cars are coming, one from this side, you just stand up. Never panic, just stand up, because then they will go this way or that way. If you run, then you will be probably hit by the car. So therefore you have to be very calm and not panicky, and then if you slowly go, then you will be safer. I think that's very important, that when you are in that situation of danger, you have to be very calm and very clear, and not give in to panic, because that would be dangerous, So I think, this is more or less, of course, there are different kind of fears, but, mainly in this kind of panic is not, and actually anything, fear, it's like what we talked about. There is something, this might happen, and then we have to be a little bit more clear. What can I do to change this danger or to get rid of this danger? And so we need to try to apply all those things as clearly and as you can say fearlessly, if you like, possible. And then if something happens, that you don't have to regret. So this is the way. And if the fear is just like worries, then there is never any. You can worry about anything. The sky might fall on your head. The another planet will come and hit you. Anything can happen all the time. So then you just have to say that no, it's not necessary, because you never know what happens. If the worst thing happens, there's nothing you can do. Then it will happen like that. You have to accept this. But most likely it will not happen. But if there is something you can do to prevent those dangers, then you should do it. Like for instance, putting on a mask in the coronavirus time, or wash your hands or anything like that. But then sometimes, despite of all those things, you get it. So then you have to deal with it.
Thank you, Rinpoche. There's also a question now, a question about the difficult moments, and I'm sure we've all been there, and unless we're very lucky, we'll find ourselves there again. But it's a question from Shana that says, sometimes everything is black and pointless. I meditate, but it doesn't help. I read the texts, and they don't help. In these situations, what to do?
I think everything black. I mean that itself is a state of mind. So I think we need to relax and wait, because it's going to change. Because it's a state of mind. Everything is not always black. Everything is not always bright. There is always some good things, some not so good things, some dangers, some positive, some negative. So if we can look for some positive side or some positive things or some possibilities, then I think we can. That would also help us, in the situation, whatever that situation is. It's not necessary that meditation can, you start to meditate and all the problems solve. It's not like that. But I think what His Holiness Dalai Lama once said is, I find it very useful. Once a journalist was asking him that, you talk about being, optimistic and how important to be optimistic. But he said, but how, what is there to be optimistic in your case? Because you have been dealing with China for the last 60 years and nothing achieved. Everything failed. And, it's going bad to worse. What's there to be optimistic about? And His Holiness said that, yes, it is true. The Tibetans going through one of the worst times in the history. It's true, there's so much bad things. But, he said, because there's so many bad things happening, there's so many things that we can do to make everything slightly better. We can make something better because everything is so bad. So if we focus on that what I can do a little bit that makes things slightly better, And if I focus on that, I'm always optimistic, because I'm trying to make something better, and I'm working and focusing on doing that. So therefore there's always a place and a space to be optimistic, even in the worst situations. So I think that's very important, I think.
Now there's like around 17 questions. How are you doing for time? We're sort of 13:24 just coming up.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's up to you.
Okay, we'll do a few more, but please, let me know if you feel it's putting you under pressure for time. The next question is from Andres. I might need to ask him to unmute himself and ask, because I'm not sure I have the full sense of the question from what's written. But it seems to be that the need for training is not at issue. But there are problems when one sort of looks at how fast or how slow it proceeds. And sometimes it may lead to the conclusion that we don't know actually how to train. And this is more difficult because of the vast amount of time that we're looking at in terms of achieving results.
I think we need to make small steps. I think every small step is a forward towards. So we can't just expect everything will be completely transformed and everything will be better. But if I can a little bit be like mindful for 1 or 2 minutes, if I can deal with one strong negative emotion or something like that, that I think is good thing. I should be happy with that, and then like that, I don't become a great compassionate and a great bodhisattva just like that. But if I can somehow learn to deal with certain situations, certain emotions, certain a little bit better, sometimes that's, I think, the way forward, I think.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Is there anybody, either you yourself or anybody there's 2 or 3 questioners are asking if we can put in the chat the title of the translation you referred to by Khenpo David, or at least his full name, so that people can look for this translation when it appears. Is there anybody that can help with that? If so, if you could put it in the chat box, that would be very helpful.
It's Khenpo, Khenpo Karma Chumpel, Khenpo David. David is his Western name. He's a Western person, and Karma Chumpel is his Tibetan name. And he's a fully trained Khenpo, Karma Chumpel. And his translation, I don't know if it is already out, but is coming from the Shambhala publication in America.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche. There's another question about fear. Someone Vinod is asking, how can I stop fears coming up again and again, which I know are not real most of the time? So there's a kind of a recognition that the repetitive fears that keep coming up, with a recognition that they're not really as substantial as they might be, but nonetheless they still come. So this is a question asking, is it possible to stop those?
I think that time that many different people have different kind of ways of having experiences, and some people have lots of different fears, and some people have worries, and some people, well, worry and fear is also similar. Actually, it's also fear. And fear is actually very, is very fundamental thing. It's there with lots of, it's something which is very much samsaric thing. So it's not easy to be totally free from fear. But I think the main thing is that when you recognize that this is, it's coming up, and then you see that this is not something that is too, what can you say, reasonable, or too true or solid, or something like that, then you can naturally let it go. So doing that again and again is, I think, very, very important to recognize that, and also to understand that fear is even when it is something that is more concrete. Fearing doesn't help us. Instead of fearing, we have to see what can we do to to prevent whatever we fear happens, or if there is anything, because we can always fear something. Something might happen this way, that way, all kind of things, and that wouldn't like worry. It wouldn't do any good for us. So therefore, we say that there is a saying in Tibetan that if you are too afraid, you are fearing every time, then kind of you are dying every day or every moment. But if you don't fear that much, then you die one time in your lifetime. So it's better to die one time in your life rather than dying every day. So it's a little bit like that. So I think we need to some bad things can happen all the time. There is no guarantee that some bad thing will not happen. But when we have to do everything possible to make as best as possible, and then whatever happens, we have to face it. And so therefore, without too much fear and without especially too much panic, so then it's the only way, I think. This is also I think a attitude and a way of understanding, and then to use that understanding in our life again and again. Remind ourselves of this again and again, I think.
Question really about going back to anger. It's from Zara, and she's saying, do you, Rinpoche, think a little bit of anger is good rather than getting rid of it totally? She's saying we learn from it and it brings motivation and energy. So she gives an example, saying if she gets a little bit of anger and tries to put herself in the other person's shoes, which really helps her, but if she's really angry, she tries to take herself away from the situation and do something physical, like cleaning the house like a whirlwind, and so to make the energy useful in this way.
Yes, you can do that. You can do that. I think this is also, sometimes there are people, who are very, psychologically disturbed. They cannot feel anything. And then I've seen that people who are kind of using psychology and therapy, they try to make them angry or and then express that, and then they come back, and a little bit more, feeling. I think that's a good thing, if they cannot, they become so numb and so kind of totally like senseless. Then this is a good, it is a good way. You have to make yourself more like a proper samsaric being, and then slowly deal with that also. So this kind of things is also okay, and but yeah, that's okay, and people used this even in Dharma, like before, sometimes in many different things you can use. So yeah, it's okay, but the main thing is not to keep it. You can get angry and upset, and and sometimes people also pretend to be angry. If somebody is doing something wrong, and then you kind of wrathful, they call it wrathful compassion. They they pretend to be very angry and and shout, and and then actually this will help the person, and then like Marpa used to do this to his student Milarepa. He knew what exactly he needed, but it was not easy way, because he was a very hardened person with lots of people killed. He had killed lots of people. He was a big black magician and things like that. So he had to be very wrathful and things like that. And so everybody was astonished. Everybody was completely some people thought the Marpa has become mad. Some people thought he's become drunk. Some people, even his devoted wife was not agreeing what he was doing. He was so, everybody was completely upset, and he was giving him so much trouble, and he was always angry, and he was beating him and things like that. But then his wife sometimes saw him, after doing something really hurting, she saw him, putting his cloth on his head, and he was actually crying. But at the end, then Milarepa became what he became, and so therefore, then later on, of course, everybody knew that it was a kind of a skillful means, but it was a very hard skillful means. It was very difficult for everybody. So there, but
there's another question here about fear, really asking for clarification. Where earlier you were speaking about the usefulness of fear, and the person is saying, is that more like the fear of consequences, a little more like what we would call conscience, rather than the panic state of fear?
That's right. We have to see the situation. I mean, the wisdom is very important. We have to think, and we have to understand, and we have to see the causes and conditions and things like that. And then, there are lots of things that we have to be cautious about, and there are lots of things we have to be mindful about and things like that. And if we don't do that, then it will cause lots of problem for ourselves and lots of problem for others. So therefore, yes, that we have to learn how to fear, or how to be cautious, or how to be aware of what is causing pain and problem and difficulties for ourselves and others. Yes, but not panic, and and not fear all the time, like things like that.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Here is a question now, which is It's a very good one for me, but sometimes a difficult one for us to deal with. It's from Katarina. She's saying, some of us, we like to be helpful or useful to others, but it's almost like a compulsion. And we do it even when we lack the qualities in order to be truly helpful. And she's saying, maybe when we do this, we're just seeking to be appreciated. So how should we better focus on how to work with our feelings of uselessness in this situation?
I think it is I personally think that it's a very good thing that if you want to help, and but then we have to be as everything else. We have to think properly and a little bit use, our wisdom and circumstances. Whether, doing something that this person doesn't want, or imposing something that. Is it really helping or not helping? And sometimes the best help is to be, to be out of sight, to go away from there. So we need to see and a little bit understand, a little bit more perceptive, I think. But then that doesn't. I think it's it's okay to be. Of course, everybody, we are still samsaric beings. We cannot be totally selfless. We cannot be, without, wishing any appreciation and things like that. But we also have to know that, if you do something, it might be helpful, it might not be helpful. It might be appreciated, it might not be appreciated, or it might not be appreciated as much as I want to be appreciated, and that's okay. I think we need to be prepared for that. I think that's important. Even if people don't appreciate, I try to do with my good intentions. That's okay. I don't have to be hurt. I don't have to be angry. I don't have to be sad. It's okay. This, I think, is very important, that we are ready to face whatever happens.
If you feel angry about the injustice in the world, and then you want to take some action to make things more equal and more fair, if you do that because the action, if you like, has come out of or been motivated by some anger, does it necessarily have bad or negative karmic consequences?
I don't know, but this is, I think it's a mixed thing, because your main intention was to do something good, to do justice, or to bring justice and to bring welfare to lots of people, and because we are all kind of habitually more angry, so that's what we have to, that's the usual way of our reaction. So I think it's okay. It's okay. But the main thing is, I think, to hold on to that anger too much is not good for us and not good for in the long run. So therefore, usually what we say is this: that anger and compassion comes from the same situation. You see something wrong, something not good, something bad, and then you say, "Oh, this is very bad," like injustice, and then now these are the people, or this is the person who did that. So you kind of react against that person or those people, and then it becomes anger, because you want to fight with that, you want to do something against those person, that person or those people and things like that. You become angry, and then at the end you are so angry at those people that actually you forget the real issue, why you got angry. But when you see this happening, that is something not good, and then you say, oh, this is not, this should not happen, something else should happen. I want this to be, changed. If your focus becomes on the issue, not on the people, then it becomes compassion, because you are totally, focused on the situation, the issue, the problem, and for the good of everybody involved, those who are, inflicting them, or those who are, recipient of this situation, then the issue has to be resolved. So when that state of mind happens, then it becomes compassion. That's what we call compassion, that you want to solve this situation and for the good of everybody concerned. So it's not about, punishing somebody or, bring something bad on some people, but, changing the situation. So therefore, this is regarded as the right way to do it. But of course, we don't know any other way. Many times you just get angry and upset, and that's also okay in a way. But many times, then in the long run, it doesn't solve the problem, but it creates another problem, because you become the same kind of people who did those negative things. When you are in more powerful situation, you do the same to these people who you thought were doing negative things, and then it just changed the place, but it wouldn't really solve the problem. Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's all. Thank you, and very nice to meet all of you, and to talk to you through Zoom, through time and space. And although this year I couldn't travel, but I'm seeing lots of people through Zoom, and I'm very happy. Thank you very much.